Hello, it's the May edition of Wild Pyrford, and it's great to be out and about again, filming for our series of conservation videos in Pyrford and surrounding areas. And a lot's been happening. Well, spring arrived for one thing, and in this edition we'll be visiting Joy Sashak's rewilding project to catch up with how that 100-acre golf course, as was, is now providing habitats and food for a whole range of wild creatures. But we begin by meeting up with Jimmy Walker, who, along with her team of volunteers, maintain the grounds of the Church of the Good Shepherd, Wisley Church, and the 12th century churchyard of St Nicholas. And it's there that we met up with Jimmy to see what spring has delivered to this beautiful spot.
Conservation is quite a tricky thing to think about because we're really aiming at having it looking as natural as possible without letting it turn into a wilderness so that people feel that the graves are being neglected, because they are the primary purpose of this ground. So we do think ahead. We don't use weed killers, pesticides, unless it's absolutely essential. The other thing we deal with in spring is the alkanet, which is this weed you can see all around us with big leaves which have white spots. The flowers are the most beautiful gentian blue, but the roots can be as much as half a metre long, like an enormous carrot, and they swamp everything within their grasp. So we don't really want them to take over from the grass, the snowdrops, the primroses, and all the other things that we have in the churchyard. This tree was planted about 10 years ago in memory of a lady who used to be living in Pyrford, and her daughter lived in Cornwall and asked especially for this tree. It is one of the early flowering spring cherries. It has been beautiful this year, but the wind hasn't helped because it blows the petals off rather soon. But the sun brought it out really early, and it was magnificent against the blue sky. This beautiful cherry tree is a native English wild cherry, which we planted, I think, about 30 years ago. Ernie and I planted the hedge behind us, and this is part of the hedge. This provides, later on in the summer, cherries for the birds to eat, small mammals when they've dropped off, and probably lots of other creepy crawlies that we don't see, but they will eat the nibbly bits left on the stones when the others are finished with them. There are squirrels too that will probably eat them. Badgers visit this churchyard, and deer. I'm not sure whether they're partial to cherries, but there are plenty of wild creatures that will be grateful for them. This is a barren strawberry. It's a native plant, different from the wild strawberry because it doesn't produce nice strawberries. The leaves are grey-green and hairy. It loves to grow on dry, stony places, edges of paths, and this whole grave is covered in it. The bees like it, and other small things, I think small beetles. Just depends what's flying at this time of year when it's out. Mostly it'll be bumblebees. The Botanical Society of Britain and Ireland records plants regularly, and by looking at the statistics going back for the last 100 years, you can see great changes in our flora.
Jimmy Walker's spring collection, now on display at St Nicholas Churchyard. And you're watching Wild Pyrford, a series of videos on conservation projects in and around our village. Our final item today finds us spending some time at Joy and Akil Sashak's rewilding project. Spring has certainly brought the wildlife out, as we discover with some stunning pictures from Mike Tibbetts, all taken at Joy's estate. Carol Mitchell took advantage of some spring sunshine to catch up with developments at this 100-acre rewilding project.
Carol, hello. Nice
Hi,
to see
Joy.
you again.
Thank you. Thanks for having us back in the warmth and the sun, and it's spring.
Last time it was so cold, I have to say.
It was. This must be one of the most exciting times of the year for you.
It is lovely. I think the things that I love the most about this time of year are, well, blackthorn is one of my favourite, and then the lime bright green of the little leaves coming out. Love spring, early spring.
And it must be, with a garden of this size, we'll call it a garden, there must be lots of pockets of different interests coming up at different times, so there's so many things to look forward to.
Yeah, first of all we see the daffodils. Well, first of all we see the snowdrops, of course, and then the daffodils come out. They're past their best now. I think blackthorn is looking amazing now, and now the silver birch is beginning to come out really well.
So Joy, over the winter months, what wildlife have you seen?
We know we've got badgers. We know we've got a badger set. I haven't actually seen them, but we know they're active. We've seen a lot of deer. The deer are much more active in the winter, or we see them in the winter, whether they're more active. We have counted 11, my youngest son and I. Apart from that, just the birds, we've noticed them. We've got the same things that I've told you before. We've got teal, we've got widgeons, we've got lots of Canada geese, we've got lots of native geese, we've got some Egyptian geese. They pair up, and we have a pair out there. We've got swans.
Tell me about this area here with the lake. It looks really beautiful. It's obviously a special place for the family that have gatherings here.
We do, we come here, we have little barbecues. The lake was built in about the 80s, but it's actually a haven for wildlife. Frogs, toads, newts, all sorts of things there, and we see a kingfisher. Every year we've seen a kingfisher coming here. I know that's unusual in a lake, they usually like flowing rivers, but we have a kingfisher regularly.
Very exciting. Oh, this is lovely.
It is nice.
So Joy, where are we now then? What's the significance of this ditch? I know you were doing a lot of ditching last year, but is this an important one?
Well, I mean, this is a ditch that ever since we've owned the place, we've ditched it every 3 years. But about 5 years ago, it must be now, I was sorting out my basement. My basement has regularly flooded since we bought the place. And we found an old exit of water. We put some blue dye in it, and the blue dye came out here.
Wow.
So this is an ancient draining system from the basement in my house.
So it is very important to the safety of the house then,
It's
really?
incredibly important. I mean, ever since we've opened this out, the basement, which was always wet, and the walls were soaking up the water from the floor, is now bone dry.
So this is part of a really intricate, well-engineered network of ditches.
The whole of Pyrford has this well-engineered ditching system that drains our land really very, very well.
Carol Mitchell was talking to Joy Sashak with some pretty amazing wildlife pictures, I think you'll agree, courtesy of Mike Tibbetts. Well, that's it for this month. Next time, we'll be meeting Rachel Jones, Senior Ranger at Pyrford Common, and discovering that there's more to our green verges than just a bit of grass, with the borough's neighbourhood officer, Sian Hunter-Hill. Remember, you can email us at wildpyrford@gmail.com or visit our website, www.wildpyrford.com. Well, that's it. It really is it. We'll be back in June, which, thinking about it, will be the middle of the year. Oh well, there we are, that's a thought. Anyway, until next time, from all of us here at Wild Pyrford, goodbye.